Thanks for tuning in to Tapped In. If you're feeling stuck or overwhelmed on the mats, come find your direction in our DFM Coaching BJJ School community. Now, let's get started.
Welcome to Tapped In. My name is David Figueroa-Martinez of DFM Coaching, and today we're going to be discussing the black belt blues. For many of us, that when we get to black belt, it's such a big accomplishment that sometimes you get left with this little, almost a letdown. Like, what am I supposed to do next? What goals am I supposed to accomplish? What events am I supposed to look forward to? What am I striving to? And it is a weird sensation, if I'm going to say. The best thing, and it nowhere near correlates apples to apples, but it's like, from what I've read and heard, the people who get gold at the Olympics, they have a huge letdown at the end of it, because it's like, okay, I'm done, but what else do I go to? And again, I'm not saying black belt is anywhere close to what it feels like to be an Olympian, but there's this almost visual or emotional letdown that happens because this is the goal that you've been trying to attain for so long that it can almost sometimes feel like a finish line. After you're done with the finish line, like if your goal was to run a marathon and you finally run the marathon, what do I do next? Do I run another marathon? Do I pick a longer race? What's next after that? And when you get your black belt, there's a little bit of that. There's a little bit of what comes next. What do I focus on? What do I attain? What am I pushing towards? And if you've probably taken anywhere from 8 to 10, 12, maybe even 15 years to get to that point. And the entire time you've been focused on getting that black belt, which every degree, every piece of tape, every belt, the end goal was always, let me get this black belt. And I think that's part of the approach that maybe needs to be fixed for us from a student standpoint. The black belt is not a finish line. It really isn't. It could be if you look at it that way. It could be if, again, I was in that boat too, and where I want to get my black belt in 10 years. And that was a big goal of mine. I got there. Luckily for me, I actually had other things coming on or going on at the same time that I had other goals and stuff. But if you're not teaching, you're not coaching, you're not running a program, you're not opening a gym, sometimes it gets a little like, okay, I reached the peak, now what? The next degrees, they just come because you didn't die. As weird as that sounds, they don't come because of a skill increase or better understanding of teaching or jiu-jitsu. They literally come to you by default every so many years. The first couple are every 3, and then it's every 5. And so on. So they don't come to you because you got better. Technically, I could have stagnated. I could have got a whole lot worse within those first 3 years and still got my degree. I could have pulled back on training. I could have pulled back on teaching and just kind of like, hey, I'm just going to coast it in. I'm going to train once a week. I would have still got that degree. It does not have any weight in terms of, have I got better at teaching? Have I got better at explaining things? Have I got better at my technique, being more technical? None of that even matters. It's the weirdest sensation. I remember getting there, and within a couple of weeks, maybe in a couple of months, it had dawned on me that I'll never get another belt again. Never. I don't think I'm going to live long enough to reach the next one, coral or whatever it is, because I started too late. I started at 30, got my black belt at 40. I'm now 45. 15 years in, I am a 1 degree black belt. You know what I mean? I don't get my second degree until next year. So again, there is nothing that belt-wise that motivates you, that gets you up in the morning, that gets you going. It's strictly up to you. There's nothing else that kind of, and it's this weird thing. It feels like when you graduate high school or college, you're no longer a teenager. You now are completely responsible for your own training, specifically at certain gyms. if I'm at a bigger gym that has black belts and there were plenty of black belts before me and there's a head instructor, I think that the student approach continues to grow because you're still growing, you're still moving into something, and there's plenty of people ahead of you. If you're at a gym where things are a little smaller and maybe you don't really have a head instructor, you have someone who owns the gym, but they're not really filling that head instructor role. Like me, for example, my head instructor, we don't really have one at La Mesa. Like, it's really by committee. We have an owner, but like I run the morning program and a couple of different teachers run the evening program, or like the evening program, but there's no head instructor that kind of oversees everything daily and oversees your progress that you kind of check in with. The guy that signs off on my degrees is up in Redlands and I'm in San Diego. You know what I mean? That's a drive. And I've been meaning to get up there and try to get up there at least twice, maybe 3 times a year, but it's a drive. It's a commitment. And sometimes with all the things I got going on, I just don't have time to get up there. And so I have been one of those students that is at a gym that got my black belt 5 years ago, and I have had to govern my own journey after that. I think luckily for me, I didn't have the greatest relationship with my instructor, not the one I just mentioned. So I had to kind of govern my own anyway. So I'm kind of used to that. But it's different for everyone. And I can see students have reached black belt and just kind of falter, just kind of struggle with maintaining that drive and understanding that things have changed now. For example, I had to literally redefine what a success or a successful week or a successful month and year was for me. Because there are no degrees anymore, I had to look at things in a way of like, what am I going to work on for this couple of weeks, couple of months? I had to give myself homework. And sometimes that homework was derived from the fact that I wanted to learn something in order to teach it. And sometimes it was very specific to me. Sometimes it was jiu-jitsu adjacent, like a blog, a video, this podcast, or techniques that I wanted to post on social media. And that became my driving force. So it wasn't necessarily specifically jiu-jitsu all the time, but it was all these little side projects that were related to the art. I have loved teaching since I was a blue belt. I used to help my mentor at the time at my old gym. And then when I went to Gracie San Diego, I started helping with the kids program, took over the 3 to 7 year olds for 6, 7, 8 years, whatever it was. And I've been teaching ever since in some capacity. I genuinely love that aspect. So that, in essence, became some of my refining and redefining of what my goals were going to be. They're no longer specific to me all the time. And sometimes they're very like selfish. Me, I'm going to try to compete, or I'm going to try to lose weight, or I'm going to work on this type of game. I want it to be better. I want it to be more crisp, more elegant. Sometimes it's about where the program is. Maybe I want more connections with myself and other gyms, which is something I'm doing on now. Sometimes it's, I got these white belts and I want to get them to blue belt within a year, 13, 14 months time. So then I'm working on that. Oftentimes it's also like redefining how I teach. What am I working on? How do I convey the messages better for my student population? How do I get them to understand more complex things in a shorter time and an easier approach about it? It's difficult, but that's where I start also chiming in and studying leadership books and leadership personalities and seeing, okay, so how do I adapt this person's model for the workplace in a jiu-jitsu setting? How do I adapt this person's model for getting better at jiu-jitsu into my own program? So I'm constantly like going back and forth and understanding what that looks like. So I have my minor goals within me on how I want to establish things and programs I want to set up. And like I have this school program where I'm building a curriculum and a set of techniques that students can kind of chime in on and listen and watch and get better with. But I'm constantly looking at How do I get better at that stuff? And that's what kind of keeps me motivated and keeps me going. But I had to redefine what success was going to look like. It was never going to look like a belt again. And there's a little sad aspect to that. But I had to come to grips with it. And every person that gets the black belt is going to have some kind of a moment, I think, because it's going to feel different for everyone. And some of us are going to get frustrated, and some of us are going to have this massive letdown because you've been struggling towards the same goal for 10, 15 years, and now it's finally here, and it doesn't quite fit or feel like it once did, like, or what you thought it was going to feel like. The other part of this is, by the time we get there, many of us, especially the quote-unquote hobbyists, and I only use that word because that's the term that's commonly used, we're having physical tolls. We're having longevity issues. And the way I used to train isn't the way I train now. And sometimes that kind of bums us out. And we have to understand that we can't go 100% 4 or 5 days a week. And then now it's me kind of gauging, who am I going to roll with? Who can I have a really competitive round, know that I'm going to be safe, and then I can go home and be close to 100% by the time I get home and I go to work? And who do I need to stay away from? And then which days do I want to go 100? And there might be a couple of days, like right now, I trained this morning at an open mat, loved it, but I feel banged up right now. So I'll probably take tomorrow off. And it's that give and take of listening to your body and deciding whether you want to push it another day, knowing I have from like my schedule, I'm off Monday from training, teach Tuesday. I may or may not be able to get some training in depending on the amount of people that show up. So it becomes a little bit of a challenge. When I hit 40, I banged up both my hips, separate incidences. And I remember thinking, fuck, is this my life now? And I got past that, and I've had some nagging injuries here and there, but I'm in a solid place for the most part. But I can definitely see how, as we age, it gets harder to keep coming to work and train and getting up in the morning, especially if you're doing an early morning training session. I don't blame people for feeling like, I really want to keep doing this. At some point, we might have to make that tough decision. I'm hoping that this is a lifelong thing for me. It's not just something that I do when my body allows it to, but even when I can't train, I want to be able to teach. But again, not everyone wants to teach, so I completely get it. There's also a shift whether we want to pursue that avenue or not. There's a shift from being student then to now being quote unquote professor, teacher, coach. And we get to decide what role we want to play and to what degree. By the time you get to black belt, you will have been teaching something somewhere, even if you didn't have a class. People are going to come to you with questions. They're going to have issues that they kind of want your perspective on. Maybe it's just your drilling partner, and they're like, "Hey, I don't get this," and you kind of walk them through it. And that is teaching. So the role automatically puts you in a place to kind of have to guide people. Now, to what degree is completely on you. If teaching speaks to you, I genuinely believe that you should pursue that, and you should pursue it in a way that, how do I get better at this? Both in, like I explained earlier, technical, how do I explain things? How do I convey messages clearly? What kind of role model or environment do I want to create for people? All those things have to be considered and developed. They're not going to come to you just because you got the black belt. So in some degree, that's going to be your new goal. If that's something you want to do, you're going to do it to some degree. So to what degree that is, completely up to you. You do not have to be an instructor, like full on with a class and a program and all that. Maybe you just want to be a substitute. Maybe you just want to teach a class here and there, just whenever, and then move on. Perfectly fine. My advice to the coaches, if you have a program or you have a class and you have darker belts coming up the ranks, prepare them for that role. Prepare them for the fact that things do change at black belt. Prepare them for the fact that there might be a little bit of a letdown because you get that belt, and just like every other belt, you get it and it feels new, feels great. And then after a couple of weeks, it's genuinely back to business. No one fucking cares. No one cares that you just got promoted. That you, like in the beginning, it's a lot of, oh, congratulations. So proud of you. Great job. Well deserved. And then it becomes your new home and it doesn't feel new anymore. It's right back to business. Prepare them for that. Prepare them for the fact that, hey, the black belt's going to come with a lot of responsibilities that you're not used to. It's going to come with certain expectations from students that may or may not be fair. It's going to come with the fact that you may be asked to give more than you're willing to give as an instructor versus being a student. Understand that it's okay to say no if you don't want to teach, but prepare them for that. Because a lot of gyms are going to start asking you, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you teach? Because getting a black belt to teach is a big deal. At some point, you're going to have maybe some black belts leave, and now you're the next senior, and they're asking you to teach more. But if you don't want to teach, don't. But you have to be prepared to have that conversation too. Have the conversations of, you're going to be looked at differently. There's a weight that gets placed on that person's shoulders when they get promoted. Fair or not, it's a weight. And you have a certain responsibility whether you want it or not. And there's a certain element or a certain aspect that you carry every time you get on the mats. You represent your instructor, the academy, unlike any other belt. It's just going to feel different. It's going to feel weird. And I just think that it's an element that we do not talk about enough. It's an element that we do not prepare our students for. And I was fortunate enough to know that I wanted to teach and that I was going to continue to develop that. But if I didn't want to do that, I don't know how well I would have transitioned into the belt. Because I can really genuinely see, I have some friends who are struggling a little bit with it. And it's not a fun thing to kind of experience. It's not a fun thing to see. And then the people that have been at black belt, kind of pull those new black belts under your wing. It's going to feel weird for them, and they're going to need a little bit of advice. I hope this helps. If there's any questions on this or anything else jiu-jitsu related, hit me up. BFF.2099 on Instagram and Threads. Until next time, thank you so much.